In true MicroStation style, there is an ACS toolbox in addition to the tools shown on the ACS dialog box. Let's open that up now. So I'll go to Tools, right down to Toolboxes, and I'm going to open the ACS dialog box, which is there. Now let's compare that with the actual ACS dialog box, which is here. Move that over just a little bit, and I can pop that into place over the top. The only difference is this first one, which in fact just turns the ACS dialog box on or off. But the rest of the tools are the same. You might work with this toolbox rather than with the dialog box. So I'm going to draw a new figure, and I'm going to start with a rectangular base, top orientation. This is a very simple figure. I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to make a pyramid. So I need a vertical line in the center of this block. And to do that, I need to do the center snap. That finds the center. I can now draw vertically upwards if I rotate the compass. And that will do. So there's my vertical line. Now I want to create faces here. So I'm going to use Smart Line with join elements on. So I'll start at the top here and pick that point and back to my starting point to generate a face. And then I'll start here again, come back down to this point again, and there back to the starting point. Now I've got two separate faces, that face and that face. Now to avoid confusion, I'm going to delete the center line. So we simply have half of the pyramid. And what I want to do is place ACSs on each one and save them, and you'll see why in a minute. So I'm going to use the Create ACS by Face tool first, so we'll start that. Now watch the prompts very carefully. First prompt is to select an element with a planar face. Now by the way, if you can't see all of this information, just drag this separator along a little bit so you can see. Here's my ACS coming into place. I need to select an element, well that's this one, so I'll select the element. Immediately the face is highlighted. Now I want to place the ACS at a bottom corner or some other location. It will snap to that point right there so that I can use X and Y offsets on my compass from its origin, which I want to locate at that corner. So I will accept that location, and the prompt says data point to accept. I can do that anywhere, so move over and accept it. There's my ACS in place. So here's my new ACS. I'm going to save it. Call it face 1. Enter. So that one's saved. Now let's make an ACS for the second face. So this time I'm going to use ACS by points as a different tool. Now notice in here it says rectangular. That's simply the type of ACS, and you will be using rectangular throughout this course. The other choices, as I mentioned in a previous video, are cylindrical and spherical, but we need rectangular. So this is by points now, so watch the prompts. Enter first point on the x-axis, well that will be this point. Enter second point on the x-axis, that will be that one. And my third one is here. That's my y-axis up there. And there's my ACS for that face. And I'll save that one too. Face 2. There's face 1 and face 2 saved. And now I have 4 ACSs saved. My original 3D to get me back to Design Cube, the slope that I made previously, since I'm still in the same drawing, and my 2 new faces. I'm going to go back to 3D, so double click that, and I see now my regular Design Cube orientation. Now what if I want to switch back to one of these 2 ACSs to work on either of these 2 faces? Well, the simplest way to do it is to use this tool, which is Select ACS. If I click on that, then immediately all of the saved ACSs in this drawing are displayed on the screen. So here I see my face 1, my face 2. If I zoom out, I'll see the slope ACS and my 3D ACS. All I have to do now is select one of these that I want to work with, and I'll select face 1. So we go very close to face 1, highlight it, data point on it, and we're now working in the ACS for face 1. Let's repeat that. Select ACS. Let's select face 2. Now I'm working in the face 2 ACS. So a very quick way of switching between ACSs. What I'd like you to do as an exercise is to add the two back faces on the other side of the pyramid and create ACSs for those faces. When you've done that, using these ACSs, add elements to each of those four faces. Use circles and blocks and simple things. And just make sure that they're actually in those faces by rotating the pyramid to see that they are in the plane of those faces. Now, a word of warning, when you do this, I've selected face 2 at the moment. If I wanted to place a circle in that face, I would start the circle tool and draw. But look at the compass orientation. It doesn't seem quite right. It certainly doesn't match the ACS icon. And in fact, if I look at my remaining views, here's my 3D. If I draw the circle, note that in the top view and in the front view on the left, that circle is definitely not in the plane of that face. So the trick here is to rotate the compass to that plane. So now we use the E shortcut, and there's one. And now I see that my compass is nicely aligned with that face. I can see it in both the top view and the front view. So now I can place that circle. If I rotated the pyramid, you'd see that the circle is in the proper face. So remember that little trick that you may need to use the E shortcut to actually rotate the compass to the ACS plane. That's not immediately obvious. Please keep that very firmly in mind. Now you might note too that if I click on the Select ACS icon, the ACSs show up in all of the views, and I can select the ACSs from any open view. Now before I finish this video, just a couple more points. There are two locks that you can look at. That's the ACS plane and the ACS plane snap locks. The ACS plane first. This option locks all drawing activity to the plane of the current ACS, unless you snap to elements off the plane. In other words, data pointing anywhere in the view with that lock on will place a data point on the ACS plane. Now that will simplify placing elements on that face or anywhere else in that plane. The ACS plane snap, on the other hand, locks all snaps to the plane of the current ACS. Now what that means is that you need to be a little cautious about this. When it's on, it may look like you're snapping to elements off the ACS plane, but in fact the snap points will be projected to the ACS plane along the Z-axis of the view screen. Now this can be very confusing, and you must use this very, very carefully. A little practice would help with rotations to see exactly where the snap is being located. So try both of those, but be very careful, especially with the last option. And I suppose too that I should spend a little time talking about the ACS types, the rectangular, cylindrical, and spherical. And as I've said, you'll be working almost entirely in the rectangular, but the cylindrical ACS helps you locate points on the surface of a cylinder, while the spherical ACS helps you place points on the surface of a sphere. In both cases, you don't actually need a physical cylinder or a sphere to be in place. The ACS simply provides the mechanism to locate points in those orientations. That's enough of that, so please go forward and add the two back faces to that pyramid, add two more ACSs, and then practice placing elements in the plane of those ACSs.